Hi all, welcome to today's class. Today we can discuss Sonnet 18 of William Shakespeare's Sonnet series. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? So this poem is addressed to a fair young man and it falls under the fair youth sequence. The speaker is asking the young man, that is the fair youth, if he shall compare him to a summer's day, but at the same time says that the young man is blessed with qualities that can even surpass a summer's day. And the speaker says that the summer's day shall change and diminish, but the young man shall live forever in the sonnet, as long as it can be read by people all over the world. Now let us go in detail. This sonnet focus on the warmth of a friendship, and it begins with a rhetorical question. He begins by praising an unknown friend or lover who is extremely handsome. Anyway, he is regarded as the fair youth. The poet is trying to capture the beauty of nature as well as the beauty of the young man with the help of his poetry, that is the sonnet. And he has employed a number of metaphors and similes and all other literary devices for the sake of that purpose. Though it is not stated directly, we come to know that Sonnet 18 is a love poem. Lines 1 to 2. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. The speaker is actually enthralled by the beauty of his young, handsome friend. And he says that he is forced to compare him with a bright, sunny day. But he says that this particular fair young man who is the object of his poetic description is more lovely and more temperate than a summer's day. Actually, we can see that the speaker is trying to find an appropriate metaphor to describe the beauty of his beloved. You can notice the usage of the word temperate. Temperate here means externally a climate and internally a balance of humors. And once again we have the reference to the four humors, and here the poet says that in his beloved, that is a fair young man, one can see or one can spot a judicious balance of these four humors that determines the very existence of human beings. So the poet is trying to convey that his beloved, that is a fair young man, is much more beautiful than a summer's day. Lines 2 to 4. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Here, the speaker gradually begins to realize that to whatever does he compare the beauty of his friend, they are subject to change as well as decay. And he realizes that the beauty of this particular young man surpasses the beauty of every object to which the poet compares him. The speaker admits that he cannot compare him to a summer's day. And the reason is that in summer, there might be occurrence of strong winds that can destroy the darling buds of May, that is the new flower buds that has just popped up, and summer doesn't last very long. It is followed by fall. So it is short and it is not permanent. But the poet says that his beloved or his friend's beauty is not like that. It is not short-lived. It is not mortal. Instead, it is everlasting and it is permanent. In short, the speaker says that as summer too is subject to change, how can I compare the permanence of my beloved's beauty to that particular season? So I cannot use the metaphor of summer. And look at the fourth line. And summer's lease hath all too short a date. See the way he has described the short life of summer. Summer has a lease on seasonal cycle. That means summer is the lessee and seasonal cycle is the lessor. See the beautiful comparison. It has only a short life, for it needs to make way for other seasons too. So summer is not permanent. Not only summer, all seasons are subject to change. So speaker says he cannot compare the fair youth to a summer's day. And here his similes, metaphors and all those stylistic device that he used fails to capture the beauty of the young man. And you can see that the poet has employed personification in the fourth line. Where summer has a lease on the weather, it means summer is personified as a lazy, or a human quality is ascribed to that particular season. Lines 5 to 6. Sometimes too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often in his gold complexion dimmed. Here also the poet uses personification. He personifies the sun, which sometimes appear too hot. The speaker ascribes human features or qualities to the sun. He calls sun the eye of heaven, which means here both the sun and heaven are personified. Sun is called the eye of heaven. So here you must note one thing. In Renaissance love poetry, sun was often used as a symbol for physical or personal beauty. So here, sun is personified. It is regarded as the eye of heaven, and also he gives it a gold complexion. By this, the speaker means that his object of comparison, that is the sun, which is considered as the brightest and radiant object in this universe, is subject to change. The sun too is subject to change. Sometimes it shines so bright so that one gets blinded with its light. On the other hand, sometimes it is dimmed. So how can I compare thee with the sun itself? So it is not possible for me to compare the permanence of your beauty to this ever-changing elements of nature, of which sun is one. Lines 7 to 8. And every fair from fair sometimes declines by chance, or nature's changing course untrimmed. Here we come to the core of the speaker's philosophy. We get a broader context here. The speaker declares that everything beautiful shall eventually fade away one day, and they are ephemeral too. It doesn't have a permanent charm to its credit. In short, he is trying to convey that everything is subject to change. Everything beautiful shall fade away one day, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. So here you might have noticed the usage of the term untrimmed. This particular word untrimmed can be interpreted in two ways. The first way is that it conveys a sense like beautiful things lose their trimmings. Trimmings here means decorations or embellishments at a particular point of time, and gradually they fade away. So beautiful things lose their trimmings at a particular point of time, and gradually they fade away, or beauty fades away naturally. The second interpretation is that it refers to the untrimmed sails on a ship. Here, nature is compared to a ship, or nature is a ship with sails not adjusted to changes in the wind's direction in order to correct the course of the ship. So untrimmed sails on a ship means the sails that are not adjusted to the changes in wind in order to correct the course or movement or direction of the ship. So here the speaker is trying to convey the sense that everything from fair to fair, it is subject to change, or even nature's changing course too can go untrimmed. And here the poet uses oxymoron to describe the unchanging change of nature, or the fact that the only thing that does not change is change. And indirectly, the speaker says that nature's natural changes always remain unchanged or unaffected. So, the poet is trying to convey the sense that everything beautiful on earth is subject to change, and the only thing that remains unchanged is nature's change, or the only thing that remains unchanged is change. Lines 9 to 10. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest. Here, the speaker says that all objects of nature are subject to change and decay. The summer season, with all its charm and brightness, may fade away, but your eternal summer shall not. Your summer, your brightness, your beauty is one that is marked with permanence. It is something that is divine or immortal. The poet says that his beloved shall never lose possession of that fairness that he owns or that he owes. Here, The word host in the 10th line can be interpreted in two ways. First one, honest, and the second one, honest. Honest, it is a synonym for on, which means his beloved is the honor of that eternal beauty. The second word is that, ovest. Ovest here convey the idea that beauty is borrowed from nature. So if something is borrowed from somebody, it should be repaid. So here, it conveys the sense that beauty is borrowed from nature and it should be paid back. So the usage of fair can also be interpreted in this way, that as a pun on the word fair, which is mandatory for continuing life journey. So of course one can see these themes of borrowings and lending in Shakespeare's sonnets. After all, we know this is true of both nature as well as humanity too. So in short, the speaker says that though the eternal summer or though the real summer season shall change, your eternal summer shall never fade away, and the fairness that you offs too shall never disappear. Lines 11 to 12. Nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to line thou growest. Here the speaker says that death shall not claim his beloved in those dark valleys of shadow of death, for his beloved is immortal. His beloved is made immortal through the speaker's poetry. And he says that when this poem about you grows in the hearts of its readers, you shall also remain immortal in their hearts. Here we also get an idea that the poet's beloved being a mortal is subject to decay, but the speaker says that art can make mortals immortal, and that is what he is doing in his sonnet. And in line 11 you can see that nor shall death brag the wanderest in his shade. So that is an allusion, that is a biblical allusion to Psalm 23, that is the valleys of the shadow of death. And here death is personified by using the pronoun his shade. Lines 13 to 14. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long live this, and this gives life to thee. So these lines can be read as a continuation to the previous lines. Here the poet shatters all the metaphors used so far to represent his beloved's beauty and comes to the realization that these lines, that is, this sonnet, can make him immortal. And he says that this sonnet is the best metaphor for representing the young man's beauty. As long as men can breathe and read, you shall also remain immortal in their hearts. Now let us have a look at the structure of the poem. It is a typical English or Shakespearean sonnet with 14 lines of iambic pentameters, and it has 3 quatrains and 1 couplet with a rhyme scheme of A B A B, C D C D, E F E F and G G. And it is a love sonnet. And also you can notice a volta or a shift at the beginning of the 3rd quatrain. Then regarding the other literary devices employed by the poet, it starts with a rhetorical question, and it can also be termed as aporia, that is a rhetorical question in the very first line, where there is an attempt from the part of the speaker to persuade the readers by asking the questions that have obvious answers. Then there are various symbols used throughout the seasons. It stands symbol for change, the sun, which stands symbol for beauty. And there is also the usage of alliteration in lines 8, lines 11 and lines 14. Lines 8, chance, change, the ch sound. Lines 11, shall, shade. Lines 14, lives, life. So these are few examples of alliteration. You can spot as many as you want. Then there is also usage of another particular literary device named diacope. A diacope is a repetition of a word or a phrase with one or more words in between. And you can spot a diacope in the 7th line. And every fair from fair, the fair is repeated, but you have from in between the 2 fairs. So that is an example of diacope. Then you can find ample examples of personification in the poem. So I think I have mentioned them already while discussing. So that is all about Sonnet 18. So thank you for listening and watching.